At some point during the months after the outbreak, Leon Dorsey made a decision that either makes him the bravest person alive or the most reckless. He decided to build a truck and drive it into a god. That's Project God Killer. And the story of how he got there, what he figured out, what he built, what it cost, and whether any of it actually worked is one of the most fascinating things in this entire game. So let's get into it. To understand why Project God Killer exists, you have to understand the moment Leon realized everything he tried before was never gonna work. The initial response to the outbreak was what you'd expect from a man like Leon: methodical, resource heavy, confident. He threw private military contractors at the problem, sent teams into the infected zone with containment equipment and firepower and orders to clean it up before the world found out what the Obsidian group had done. Those teams got infected, so he sent more. Those got infected too. The sludge kept spreading. The infected zone kept growing. The creatures coming out of the corruption kept getting stranger and more dangerous. And the wall, that enormous containment structure built around the drill site and everything, the sludge had already claimed, wasn't stopping anything. It was just marking the boundary between the world that still existed and the world the sludge god was building. Leon had spent his entire career believing that every problem had a solution if he threw enough resources at it. The right people, the right equipment, the right plan. He'd built an entire company on that belief, and for the first time in his life he was staring at a problem that wasn't responding to any of it. The sludge god didn't care about his containment teams, it didn't care about the wall, it didn't care about the private military budget he was burning through trying to suppress something that simply could not be suppressed through conventional force. He stops throwing resources at the surface of the problem and starts asking a different question entirely. Not how do I stop the sludge, but what is the sludge actually connected to? Instead of asking how do I stop the sludge from spreading, he starts asking what the sludge actually is, where it comes from, what drives it, what it's connected to. And what he figures out slowly through months of observation from inside the quarantine zone while his company collapses around him is that the sludge isn't just a substance, it's an expression, an extension of something anchored at a specific point. The drill mine, that mine is where everything originates, where the sludge god first came through, where its presence is most concentrated, where everything happening across the entire infected zone traces back to Leon starts calling it the source point. And the more he studies it, the more convinced he becomes that destroying it is the only move that has any chance of actually working. And when he figures it out, the answer is almost embarrassingly straightforward. You can't fight the whole ocean, but you can poison the well. Destroy the source point, destroy the anchor, and maybe the whole thing comes apart without its center. The problem is getting there. The drill mine isn't just difficult to reach, it's essentially inaccessible. Dense impenetrable sludge blocks every approach. The concentration of Homo mortis around it is unlike anything else in the infected zone, and even if you could fight your way through to the entrance, the source point itself is buried deep inside, underground, in the dark, in the place where the sludge god is most completely itself. You can't walk in with guns and explosives and expect that to be enough. Leon needs something specific, something powerful enough to actually destroy an ancient source point. Something that has to be delivered directly rather than launched from a distance, so he builds it. He doesn't publicize it. He doesn't tell anyone outside his immediate circle what he's working on. He just builds it in his base inside the quarantine zone, with whatever resources he has left from the Obsidian group's collapse. With the same obsessive focus he once pointed at solving the energy crisis now, aimed entirely at destroying what the energy crisis accidentally released. The weapon is large, it can't be carried, can't be delivered in a normal vehicle, and needs something purpose-built just to move it. Leon builds that too, the God Killer truck. If you've driven it in the game, you already know it feels different from everything else out there. Heavier, more deliberate, like something built for one specific job and absolutely nothing else. Because that's exactly what it is. Leon designed this vehicle specifically to carry his weapon to the source point and deliver it at close range. Armored enough to push through anything standing between it and the destination. Built to absorb punishment on the way in. Designed with one purpose and zero compromises, he stores it in a factory inside the infected zone while he finishes the rest of his preparation. The sludge gets to the factory before the commandos do. By the time Walter, Kato, Ruby, and Astrid go to retrieve it, the God Killer truck is buried deep inside a facility completely choked with corruption, wrapped in tendrils, surrounded by every type of Homo mortis the infected zone has available to throw at them. Like the sludge, God knows what it is, like it's been protecting the one thing that can actually hurt it. The commandos fight through the entire factory to reach it, wave after wave. everything the infected zone throws at 4 people who are already infected and running out of time. And when they finally get to the truck and haul it out of there, that moment of actually having the weapon in hand after everything it took to get there feels like something like the plan might actually work, but the truck is only part of it. Here's the thing about trying to destroy something ancient that's anchored at the bottom of a sludge-filled mine. You can't just drive straight at it. The sludge god's source point isn't sitting there waiting to be blown up. It has to be exposed, drawn out, brought to a position where the god killer truck can actually reach it and deliver the weapon. It has to be baited, and figuring out what baits an ancient god is not a simple problem. Leon works it out though. He always works it out, eventually spends time. The commandos don't really have because they're infected, and the clock is ticking, figuring out what the sludge god will respond to. What will make it move from its anchor point toward a position where the delivery is possible. He finds it, pinpoints a specific bait using radar towers scattered across the infected zone technology left behind by Hopewell's experiments in the area, and sends the commandos to retrieve it. The commandos don't fully understand what the bait is or why it works on something this ancient. Leon just tells them to get it and trust the plan, and at this point in the story, after fighting across the entire infected zone gathering pieces of a plan they've been executing largely on faith, they do. The final sequence is everything this game has been building toward. Everything is in place. The god killer truck is ready, the bait is secured, the commandos drive to the drill site through hordes of Homo Mortis that just keep coming, ramming through everything in their path using EMPs when the waves get overwhelming and they go down into the mine on an elevator, into the dark, into the place where the sludge is thickest and the sludge god's presence is most complete. They activate the bait, and the sludge god comes. What comes next is everything this series has been building toward. The sludge god isn't a boss in the traditional sense. It doesn't just stand there taking damage. It's fast. It fills the space around you. It hits differently from anything the commandos have faced across the entire game because everything before this was just the army. This is the thing that commands the army. They find the weak points. They hold their ground even when holding their ground feels impossible. They do the only thing 4 infected mercenaries running out of time have ever been able to do in the story. They survive long enough for Leon's plan to work, and then Leon arrives in the god killer truck from above. He drives it directly into the sludge god's mouth. The monster takes the bait. The weapon detonates. The source point is destroyed. The commandos find Leon afterward, wounded but alive. The man who caused the apocalypse drove a truck into the god he accidentally created and walked away from it. Now, here's where the story gets interesting because the question that lingers after the ending, the one the game doesn't fully answer, is whether any of this actually worked. The source point was destroyed. The immediate threat was neutralized. The ending feels like a victory, but the infected zone is still there. The sludge is still covering the ground. The Homo Mortis are still out in the wasteland. The corruption spreading across the land since October 29, 23 hasn't suddenly reversed itself. And here's what I keep thinking about. The sludge god is ancient. It existed beneath the earth long before human civilization. It's not a creature with one life that ends when you shoot it enough times. It's an entity, something that expresses itself through physical matter and operates on a scale that makes human concepts like alive and dead feel inadequate. Does destroying the source point actually kill something like that, or does it just wound it, force it to pull back to something deeper, something the drill never reached, something Leon's weapon couldn't touch? Does it regroup somewhere in the dark beneath the earth and wait for the next person to come along with the drill and too much certainty? The game is deliberately vague about this. The ending feels like a win, but not a permanent one. And the fact that new content keeps arriving, new missions, new threats, new things for the commandos to fight in the infected zone, tells you everything you need to know about whether the sludge god is really gone. It's not over. Project God Killer won a battle. The war is still going. What I keep coming back to though, the thing that makes this whole story stick with me, is what Leon's journey actually means when you look at it from beginning to end. He built the Obsidian group with absolute certainty that he was right. Had every resource, had the best team, had the mission, and his certainty ended the world. Then he built Project Godkiller with that same absolute certainty, had almost nothing by comparison. A quarantine zone, 4 infected mercenaries, a truck, and his certainty drove him into a god's mouth. Same man, same quality, completely different outcome. The first time that certainty caused the worst disaster in human history. The second time it drove him into the dark at the bottom of a sludge-filled mine with a weapon and a plan and nothing left to lose. because Leon Dorsey has never once in his life accepted that a problem is bigger than him. The first time that quality ended the world. The second time it drove him into the dark at the bottom of a mine with a truck and a weapon and nothing left to lose. Make of that what you will. That's the story of Project Godkiller. That's how you try to kill a god, with months of obsessive preparation, with 4 mercenaries who were never supposed to matter, with a truck built for one specific job, and with a man who caused all of this deciding that fixing it himself was the only acceptable response. Whether it worked permanently, whether the sludge god is really dead or just waiting, the infected zone is going to give us the answer eventually. And honestly, it doesn't look like a place whose god just died. It looks like a place whose god is very, very patient. Next video, we're going into John Carpenter's influence on this entire world, how the thing shaped the horror, how Escape from New York shaped the tone, how Prince of Darkness shaped the sludge god itself. If you've ever felt something familiar while playing Toxic Commando, this video is going to explain exactly why. Subscribe so you don't miss it. And drop a comment, do you think Project Godkiller actually finished the job? Or is Leon going to need a bigger truck? Tell me what you think.